to another dojo topic. Today we're going to be talking about letting go of the compulsive need to explain ourselves, to justify who we are, what we want, why we want it. So if this is something that is on your mind, I encourage you to continue watching because this might be just the information you've been looking for. So I am going to share my screen with you and um, remind you, let's see, let me just bring this into full screen mode so that you have all of the information. We meet here live every Tuesday. And if you can't join us live, I'm so happy that you're here watching the video replay. Of course, watching the video replay is not the same as being with us live and actually being able to talk about this type of conversation with other people. But I really hope you get what you're looking for in today's video. Last week, our video topic was about shifting realities, changing your past to live fully in the now. So if you were unable to join us live or you haven't yet seen the video, I will put a link to that video at the end of this video. And as promised, today we're going to be talking about letting go of the compulsive need to explain ourselves. Why is it we feel the compulsive need to explain ourselves to others, to justify our choices, or to plead our case to make someone understand our intentions, our pain, and even our worth? Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to keep reaching out for approval, validation, or understanding, only to find that it rarely brings the satisfaction you're looking for? The more you explain, the more you seem misunderstood. And there comes a time when you finally realize the explanation is not a link to someone else, it's actually a prison. You try to define yourself so that others might see you clearly, but in doing so, you shrink yourself down into words, interpretations, or fragments of your full being. You are not a statement. You are not an apology. You are not an afterthought to someone. You are not an afterthought to someone else's perception of you. You are an experience, fluid, evolving, immeasurable. When you explain, you unconsciously hand over your power. You begin to live in the minds of others. You dance to their rhythm and you adjust your frequency to match their expectations. But what if their understanding of you is irrelevant? What if the act of constantly explaining is actually a quiet betrayal to your soul's deepest peace? The mind is not in charge, but sometimes it sure seems like it is. It wants to explain because it's afraid. It fears being alone, misjudged, or forgotten. Remember, the mind is not in charge. The mind is never in charge. The mind is a tool to create the life you want. Thinking was made for you to order what you want, not to indulge in the mind. There's a big difference. When you're stuck in the mind, that's when you're in that duality of the mind rather than being the infinite being that you are. When you stop trying to convince others that you're good, right, worthy, or when you stop making your healing a performance, you maintain sovereignty over your own life, body, and even your actions. You are the infinite being, and no approval is required. You can't explain your way into peace and love, or even out of trauma. You must choose to be free, not because someone finally understands you, but because you've stopped needing them to. You're not here to be interpreted. You're here to be. Just like a flower blooms, the stars shine at night, the breeze blows, and the clouds pass by overhead. All of this happens effortlessly, and none of these require an explanation. They just are, and so are you. You aren't a being who needs to be understood. You already are understood because you are the essence of all there is. Trying to justify or prove your worth ties your worth to the fleeting impression of others based on their perception of you. People don't hear you through your words. They hear you through their own wounds and understanding of how life works. This is what happens when we try to justify ourselves to someone else. But what happens when we try to justify ourselves to others? Last week, we talked about shifting realities, and the reason we don't recognize when we've shifted a reality is because we remain in the same vibrational frequency. So when you're continuously explaining yourself, trying to justify who you are, what you want, the things that you desire, you're not telling the universe who you are. You're still begging for permission to be who you want to be. And this keeps you from being able to see when the shift is happening. So why do we feel the compulsive need to explain ourselves to others, to justify our choices, or to plead our case to make someone understand our intentions, our pain, and even our worth? The pattern for needing to justify ourselves comes from childhood conditioning, people pleasing, or not feeling safe to just be. If you find yourself often explaining yourself, justifying who you are or what you want and why, it can be traced to something in childhood. Once you've identified the childhood experience, justification becomes a choice instead of a habit. Each explanation is a subtle way of asking for permission or validation, which only reinforces feelings of unworthiness, and it drains your energy. Misunderstanding is an illusion. There is only your perception of you and someone else's perception of you. When you trust in who you are, people may judge you, but inner peace comes when you stop negotiating your true self, your value, and your worth. People often feel the need to justify themselves if there's a desire to understand their conflicting emotions or beliefs, a need to protect their self-image, social pressures, or the secrets they're hiding. When our actions or decisions clash with our beliefs, we can experience conflicting beliefs. To alleviate this discomfort, we might try to justify our actions to find balance with our beliefs or adjust our beliefs to rationalize our behavior. For example, if someone believes honesty is important but lies, they might justify it by saying, "It was just a little white lie," or "It was really necessary to say that because it was protecting someone else's feelings." What about protecting our self-image? We all want to maintain a positive self-image and feel good about ourselves. So the mind convinces us that self-justification protects us by making us feel like we're still a good person, even when we've made mistakes or done something wrong. This can lead to rationalizing behaviors that might be questionable and even harmful. What about when we want to be accepted by others, avoid criticism, or maintain social harmony? This is especially true when our decisions or actions are different from others or we go against the social norms. We might over-explain things to ensure others understand our perspective or to avoid conflict. Sometimes justifying our actions can be a way to manage uncomfortable emotions like guilt, shame, anxiety, or the secrets we're hiding. By finding reasons for our behavior, we might be able to reduce the intensity of these negative feelings. However, this can also prevent us from learning from our mistakes and taking responsibility. Just like in the movies, there are no mistakes, only do-overs until you get it the way you want it. Every mistake is a do-over, an opportunity not to justify your worth, but to shift your reality. Feeling the need to constantly justify ourselves can also be a sign of insecurity or low self-esteem. When we lack a strong sense of self-worth, we might rely on external validation and justification from someone else. Developing a strong sense of self-worth can help us feel more secure in our decisions and less reliant on the approval of others. Healing begins the moment you decide to stop seeking understanding outside of yourself. But what happens when the mind is working overtime to convince you that explaining or justifying your worth is the only answer? Byron Katie has what she calls the work. And there are 4 questions that I've listed here that she suggests you ask yourself when something is coming up, especially a limiting belief, something that you're experiencing that you prefer not to experience. So you can ask yourself these questions. Is it true? Can you absolutely know it is true? How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? Who or what would you be without the thought? And these are great questions to ask. Sometimes I know that from personal experience, I know that maybe the emotions can be so strong, you might not be in a place where you can actually stop and ask yourself some questions. But that's when you can remind yourself that you are awareness. And when you act as awareness rather than personalizing what's going on, rather than making a statement, I believe X, I'm feeling Y, I don't understand why, or my life is, when those experiences are happening and you're really emotionally attached to them, acting as awareness will take you out of the dualistic mind and into the non-dualistic realm. And in order to do that, all you have to do when you are noticing that you are in that situation, simply close your eyes and look at the backs of your eyelids. That will take you away from the mind and into awareness. And once you are acting as awareness, just noticing forms arising, whatever's coming up for you, and you're not emotionally attached, then you can go on to your current practice of what will take you out of that mindset. Healing is not an external dialogue. It's an inward stillness. It doesn't require approval or applause. Stop trying to convince yourself and others of who you are, and instead be who you really are. Nothing can judge you. You are the infinite being experiencing life as you. We justify our weight and why it isn't what it used to be. We justify our relationships and how we used to have something beautiful with someone else, and then we let it go. We justify our happiness or lack of by saying, I'll be happier when. It doesn't matter why we did it or why we want it. We are no longer children forced to explain our actions. It's time to remind ourselves that every time we justify, we're apologizing for who we are right now. But right now is all that matters. You already are what you want others to see. So why would you keep yourself from that reality? How much longer will we deny ourselves the beautiful truth of who we are? I invite you to join us at the dojo or watch for these videos every Tuesday. I post a new video. Now, the question is, did you recognize yourself in any of this message? Did you notice where you tend to justify yourself? Did you notice where you're over-explaining? Did you notice when you're giving your power away? Did you notice yourself in any of this? If so, you may want to go back and rewatch the video. Take some notes. Pay attention to what's coming up for you. It's really important to allow yourself to pay attention, be conscious of what's coming up for you instead of pushing it down, instead of keeping it a secret from yourself or from others. Like, I don't want anyone to know this about me. You deserve to stop resisting what is coming up for you because everything is a gift for the soul. If you want any kind of support with this work, I invite you to visit me at masteringyourbeliefs.com. In the meantime, this is Nancy Muller, the one and only Life Sensei, saying ciao for now.